I have had plenty of people not look out for me in the best way. Take advantage of me, do horrific things to my project cars, and just take me for granted. For example, on my 2JZ 240SX, one time I left a shop and the steering shaft wasn't even bolted in all the way. So I could have not been here anymore. Another time, my fuel pump had to be changed out and there was just screws missing on the top hat, just leaking fumes into the cabin of the car, and that was perfectly acceptable apparently. But nothing even comes close to what I had to deal with my Coyote S13 drift car. The sheer audacity that I was told that this car was almost done. But nothing is more unacceptable than literally finding fuel lines leaking next to headers and exhaust with cheap 25-cent hose clamps holding on the fuel lines. The sheer endangerment I was put in with this delivered car or almost done car is absolutely unacceptable, and you are about to see why. Alright, look, so I found some good news while doing my Coyote Swap 240SX. I've been through the absolute ringer building this car so far, but then we got to paint it, make it pretty, and then do our first donuts. It felt like a huge win. Well, then afterwards, I brought the car to my buddy Alan, who just opened his own shop. It was called Excel Motor Works. And he goes, David, I'll go ahead and do an inspection for you on the build of all the previous work of all the previous shops that worked on the car. He puts the car on the lift, and oh my God, he finds the most horrific you could ever imagine. Before we get this video started, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like button. It really helps me in the YouTube algorithm. All right, let's get to it.
After a while goes by, David brings the car back after I opened up my own place, and ended up seeing the car for the first time in probably 3 years. And there was a lot of things that I was like, man, this isn't how it's supposed to be, David. Check out these nice welds. Then we're gonna move on to the engine mounts that are not even sitting flush to whatever plate that they decided to make. Sick.
The gap, like look at the gap up there.
I mean, it's phenomenal. This side sits even better. I mean, this is just quality.
If the plates wouldn't even been there, the engine would sit a little bit lower too, kind of how
the motor is not even sitting down. I mean, kinda. It was obviously a bit of a bummer to see where it ended up at and to see how much the situation was more or less taken advantage of and how much it just looked forced. It really did. It didn't really feel like it was a meaningful build. It didn't feel like it had much purpose behind it, especially for what we started with, a new motor, new trans, new everything, and for it to be like that when I first saw it, it was heartbreaking for me, you know, to kind of just see it like firsthand after 3 years, and I'm like, oh man, like this ain't it.
My custom trans tunnel had wood screws in it and seam sealer, and they cut so much material that the chassis was almost compromised. Then Alan told me the unfortunate news of, David, this build is so bad that you might as well start all over again and do it better. This was already years of waiting to drive this thing, and it was basically back to square one.
I most certainly wouldn't buy new components and not put any fluid in them. How could I ever want to put fluid in all my new drivetrain components? Obviously, the money's been spent in areas that essentially have to be redone. A lot of things had to be reconfigured. The rack relocation had to be done. We ended up having some clearance issues with the tie rod ends slamming into the lower control arms at full lock. Not safe. No fluid in certain components, you know, wiring not the best in some areas. It wasn't safe. For it to be like that and to know what we started with and where it ended up 3 years later, it was just like, damn dude, like you had one job, you know? It just sucks how it wasn't delegated the way it needed to be in order for it to be a nice car.
The engine mounts not being mounted properly, trans tunnel being destroyed, and so many more things, I finally said, forget about it. Let's restart. Alan, you observed something.
Guys, I want to explain something to you, and I want this to be very well known across the board. Do not attach stainless steel hose to your factory fuel line and put a 25-cent pressure clamp around it in hopes that this is going to stay sealed forever.
No.
Let me explain something to you. This is tight, and I can still turn it. What do you think happens when you're move? Oh, okay.
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh no. Exactly.
To be fair, we did not do this.
I did not unclamp that at all.
Yeah.
Same with this one. Look, this one comes off. Look. Absolutely no.
And that's why we're replacing all of this crap.
Don't do that.
Yeah, no. Bad move. Fantastic.
We're gonna leave these two. This is like your more or less your evap to relieve the tank pressure. You know, like when you undo the cap and it's like after it's like super hot day.
Yeah.
Most of the time it's because either this line's clogged in a factory application, or they just put a freaking cap on the end of it and allow the tank to not be able to bleed off any pressure in the car, which will just ultimately allow your fuel to boil over when it gets too hot.
I originally was gonna try to have an interior in this car, but I finally said, forget about it. Let's just put a cage in it. And Chris Ward from Top Garage did an amazing cage in this thing. So now the first job was to get rid of all the sound deadening, which is a necessary but very tedious process. Once the sound deadening was all out of the car for the most part, it was time to try and repair the trans tunnel. Thankfully, we had master fabricator David Campo to finally repair the car. And he did an absolutely incredible job. Up late at Excel Motorworks, Alan, how are things going?
Everything is just fine.
David Campo helping me out with the trans tunnel. Also, oh my goodness, how are things going?
It's going. I mean, everything doesn't fit and it's all on fire.
But we're making progress. It's starting to look good.
Exactly.
I had hair back then too. And a lot of it wasn't gray.
Oh, are you saying that only this car caused your hair to gray? But honestly, things are getting better. It's starting to feel way better than just that mock-up basically that was on the car. And now it feels safe. Look at that. Now we're cooking with propane, as my dad always said. So, Alan.
Yes.
You said that it's a rare sight tonight. We have James Coons or Modest Racing's S15.
S15.
Then we have a Coyote Swap S13.
Yes.
And then out here is an LS Turbo BMW.
The really terrible thing is it all just becomes so normal after a while.
You get so jaded.
Yeah, it's just a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Holy shit. 5.0 swap 240. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a hunk of crap.
Yeah,
You don't have to freaking work on it.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, every time I see this car over, I'm like, just let it be over. Like, I just want it to be over. At least I did my first donuts in it, so that was an accomplishment.
Yeah.
But then my throwout bearing went out and my slave cylinder went out. So that's cool.
And then we put you a flat screen TV in the differential.
But we kept the reservoir and we replaced the fluid with water. You got a fish in there, so now it's a tank. It's a fish tank.
Fancy fish tank in there. Actually, very rare mini barracuda in there.
It's endangered.
It's endangered.
Because, like, at least when I show the before and after picture, it still looks very impressive at the moment. And then I see this. At least I got window tint, though!
Formula D is about to be all over you.
progress has been made. Alex,
Yeah,
been a while, bro.
it's been a little while. Yeah.
At the same time, do you remember when I pitched this idea to you? Mm-hmm. And then you were gonna do it,
Yep,
and you're like,
2013.
You're like, that seems kind of hard.
Yes.
There's a reason for it. After getting the ball rolling on this car once again, I then realized something. Something very important. Wait. I don't even know how to drift. Why am I building a drift car? In 2019, I was in Saudi Arabia, and it was a pretty wild experience, to be honest. But Hoonigan had a burnyard pit there, and in the burnyard pit, there was Josh Robinson. He was the dude who drove this crazy Formula Drift ute from Australia. When he was taking a break from the burnout pit, he came up to me and said, "Hey David, how come I never really see you drift that often?" And I said to him, "Well, I don't really know how." If you go backwards about a year, I built this $1,000 drift car that was an E36. I attempted to drift it, but it wasn't set up well at all and just made me look like an idiot. So I didn't really count it, to be honest with you. I had never tried to drift a car that was set up well. So then I came to the realization that maybe if I'm building a drift car, I really should know how to, I don't know, drift. So Josh said, "Hey, listen, I have the perfect thing for you. I'm gonna invite you to ice drifting." So in February of 2020, you know, before the world ended, I went up to Minnesota. Using 350Z HRs with GK Tech angle kit and studded tires from World Rally Car, it really got close to simulating the feeling of drifting on pavement. And I crashed some more. So all you have to do is put a tow strap in the hatch essentially, so whenever you get stuck, you can just get yanked out by your bro. But to really shorten this story, by day 3, I was tandeming with Josh. I would then make it a tradition to go ice drifting every single year with Texas Drift Academy.
Dude, you're a cool guy, bro. Oh my god. We almost hit you.
After learning ice drifting, I finally drifted on pavement around a year later, my very first time. I then went down to Texas Drift Academy again, but this time on pavement. I then did some drifting in November of 21 at the Drift Mansion, in the same cars that I learned how to ice drift in. Then Michael Elsey of Mid-Pond fame let me drive his LS Supra to drift there at Mid-Pond in Alabama. Okay, so I now know how to drift. So when this car is over, it wasn't a complete waste of time.
The last thing I want to do is refinish and recreate a car that I just had hella concerns about after 3 years, and then take it out there and it not perform. That's just it's not how I'd like to see it. It's not how David would like to see it. It's not how the viewers would like to see it. This is something that I wanted to go out, be able to perform. Fuel and tires, fuel and tires, fuel and tires. That's it. No other things. No breaking this, no breaking that. Of course, it comes with it. I'm not naive to that. But I don't want to go out there and, oh, this is leaking. Oh, this is happening. Oh, this wiring's this is that. Nothing. I want it to go out and perform 110%.
During this period of time in 2021, I was going on an absolute grind of car reviews. At the same time, Alan's Shop Excel Motorworks was absolutely doing fantastic with business. But since this was such an overwhelming project to basically restart this at the time, it was also the year I got my own office and own facility. While I was basically renovating my facility, filming car reviews, traveling like crazy for video content, the car just kind of ended up sitting for a while. But then we got an absolutely crazy idea. What if we try to make it to Import Alliance 2022? And man, oh man, was this a really intense decision to make. but the next 2 episodes are gonna be absolute powerhouses of content. So definitely make sure to stay tuned for the next episode where we try to make it to Import Alliance 2022, and spoiler alert, I almost have a heart attack, literally, and a ton of other things happen in the meantime. And then after that, we'll probably have either 1 or 2 episodes left with our grand finale. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys next time. Take it easy. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.